The last Labor government said it was a success because of the number of laws it passed.
We've been stable, more than 430 pieces of legislation through the House of Representatives. We got through almost 600 pieces of legislation.
That's the kind of attitude that's given us too many laws and too little freedom. Now let me show you. To set up and run Australia at the start of last century, our Parliament passed 358 pages of legislation in the first 2 years, a pile of paper this high. But in the last full year of the Gillard government, Parliament passed 8,150 pages of legislation. Have a look. Pages of laws in our first 2 years, pages of laws in the last full year of the Gillard government. Well, the Abbott government will on Wednesday introduce another measure of government success. Not passing laws, but scrapping them. Around 10,000 regulations and acts of Parliament. Now, Josh Frydenberg joins me. He's the Parliamentary Secretary in charge of this annual bonfire of laws. Josh, you promised to cut red tape by $1 billion a year. Your press release says that on Wednesday you'll be cutting just about $700 million of red tape. Why have you fallen short?
Well, we're going to have 2 repeal days a year, Andrew, and the second will be in the second half of the year. And I'm hopeful that by the end of the year we would have met our $1 billion target. It's an ambitious target. It's, as you say, succeeding where Labor failed. And it's really important to job creation in this country, to investment, to innovation in this country, even for the not-for-profit sector. They're all going to benefit out of cutting red tape.
Well, maybe you fell short by failing to get rid of the gender reporting requirements, you know, forcing companies with 100 or more employees to say what they're doing for female workers. Now, why did you back off such stupid nannyism?
Well, this area does need closer review, and we are looking at it. The point is it's not part of this repeal day, but there are 2 issues involved. One is the threshold, the number of employees a company has in which it therefore needs to report on gender. And
100 employees, that's
ridiculous. It is.
Well, why don't you just add it to the bonfire?
It is pretty low. We want to get it right, and we are talking to the people who are most impacted by this, namely the businesses.
You lost your bottle. You lost your bottle. That should have been... You might have made that $1 billion target. What are the most stupid examples of what you are scrapping?
Oh, for example, the classification of films. If you bring in the Kung Fu Panda movie into Australia, Andrew, in 2D, in 3D, in DVD and in Blu-ray, you need 4 different classifications. If you're a job service provider, you're required to keep paper records of all job applications. We found one job service provider, Andrew, that had 336 cabinets full of documents. We've said, why don't you just keep them electronically online? And you'll love this one. Universities have been required to provide the government details as to how they use their lecture theatres and their tutorial halls and their academic offices. We've said, enough is enough, you don't need to do that.
How bizarre. But listen, most of those probably wouldn't affect us too much. I mean, they're stupid and they affect a few people. What are the biggest examples of savings, though?
I'll take Comcare scheme, which allows companies that operate in more than one jurisdiction to access the government's central scheme rather than workers' compensation schemes in each individual state. Well, we've opened that up. Environmental approvals, an issue probably close to your heart. We've said we're going to have one-stop shops for environmental approvals, particularly for offshore petroleum licensing and so forth. They're going to have big, big payoffs.
Well, we're talking about environmental approvals. You mentioned one mining company having to go through an environmental approval process that took more than 2 years. It cost millions of dollars, involved 4,000 meetings, required a 12,000-page report, and ended with the mine needing to meet 1,500 conditions. OK, you say you're going to clean up that kind of nonsense. How many conditions would such a mine need to observe under your new regime?
Well, firstly, you'll have a one-stop shop, so it won't need to go through both the federal and the state, so it won't take more than 2 years. It won't cost the company more than $20 million, and they won't have both those state and federal obligations. So it will streamline the process, and this is why it's going to be so beneficial to the economy, Andrew, because projects like that may have never gone ahead because the delays were too much for the company will now go ahead because the approvals will be much speedier.
All right. one of the controversial things, and Labor's already jibing at this, is you're going to cut some of the rules banning sales commissions on financial products that a financial advisor sells you. You know, it's a ban that's meant to ensure your advisor's working in your interests rather than his own. Now, if you're going to get rid of that, is that an invitation to being ripped off?
Absolutely not. Look, it's about getting the balance right between the risk and the cost. You see, the Labor Party's FOFA laws, their changes to financial services legislation, had a $700 million implementation cost and a $375 million compliance bill. That's just passed on to you and I as the consumers.
Yeah, but I'd still like to know that my financial advisor is telling me what's in my interest rather than going to line their pocket.
And they still have to. They still have to disclose to you regularly. You still have to enter into a contract with them to get that advice. And there's also the protections in the corporations law in 961G and 961J, which provide for the financial planner to act in the best interests of the consumer.
All right. Well, look, all this goes to a philosophy, right? Now, the former Productivity Commissioner, the Commission Chairman Gary Banks said, you know, politicians who pass silly laws, you know, are just really doing something. They're showing the public they're doing something and getting reward for it. I would hope that this government is looking at saying, well, sometimes doing nothing is the best thing, and the public just got to get used to it. What are you doing to show that you are a doing-nothing government, so to speak, rather than always doing something useless government?
Look, you're absolutely right, Andrew. The last government gave us 21,000 additional regulations, and would you believe that the carbon tax, the mining tax, the NBN were never subject to a regulatory impact statement? We've said enough is enough with that. So what we've done is put out a new handbook for the public servants, for the bureaucrats, which have said, look at the options available to you. One of those options is no regulation.
Doing nothing.
Doing nothing.
The virtue of doing nothing.
Exactly right.
I'm very keen on the virtue of doing nothing.
And the other thing that we've done is we've said we're going to incentivise the public servants to cut red and green tape. So we've said to them, if you want a promotion, if you want a higher remuneration, you will be judged by your proven ability to cut red and green tape, not how much regulation you've introduced.
Speak to my heart. Now, look, talking about laws limiting our freedom. The government wants to change the Racial Discrimination Act so we have more freedom not to be racist, but to debate important issues like racial identity and the new stress on that. Now, that change has been fought by Jewish representatives in particular. Are they wrong?
I disagree with them on this issue in the sense that I do believe that Section 18C does need to be amended because you've got to get that balance right between freedom of speech and, of course, being strongly against racism and, of course, racial vilification. George Brandis has consulted widely. He's talked to Tony Abbott. We've had a discussion in the party room. I'm pretty hopeful that we will get that balance right so we don't have people like you who we believe were unfairly hit by these laws, subject to them in the future.
So people like Jewish representatives, who are the noisiest in this, Peter Wertheim, you know, Mark Liebler, and why are they so strong on this issue when other Jewish friends of mine say they're wrong?
Look, Andrew, I am very sympathetic with where they're coming from. They're good people, they're good advocates, not just for the Jewish community, but they've done a lot of work for helping other migrant communities. And what they don't want to see is a green light to racial vilification. So it's about getting that balance right. We do not want Holocaust deniers in our country. We do not want that. But I believe that you can amend...
You should shout them down, not legislate them out of existence.
I believe you can amend 18C without hurting our ability to punish those who racially vilify other people.
Josh Frydenberg, thank you very much for joining me.
Great to be with you, Andrew.
And coming up, our panel, Peter Costello and Labor strategist Bruce Hawker are next.